and how are you going to kind of work to kind of be the best director you possibly could?
Sure. Yeah, I'd say, with this position specifically, experience is everything. So I'm glad you asked this question because I can sort of speak to that a bit. I have been an advisor, whether it's through student conduct advisors or SORA since my freshman year. And with that, I've seen hundreds of cases and sat in and assisted students with hundreds of cases over that period of time. And so what that really entails is, when I say advise, that means really accompanying students to conduct hearings, accompanying them to meetings they may have with residence life directors or coordinators, assisting them with letters of appeal that they may be sending to the Office of Student Conduct given their sanctions, and a whole host of other sort of things, whether that's academic integrity or drugs or alcohol violations or anything. With that in mind, having seen so many cases, I've really come to understand that this is a position that requires you to act with experience in mind. You really need to see how things work, and you need to learn on your feet, I think, with this. In terms of the executive capacity that this sort of position will necessitate, I have been effectively serving in this role for the last year or so as the interim director, which is basically this exact thing, just no confirmation needed. And so because of that, I think it'll be a pretty smooth transition. Yeah.
Are there any other questions for Louis? All right, seeing none. Louis, if you could actually leave the Zoom webinar, and I'll shoot you a text when you're ready to come back in. Thank you. All right. Since President McKay cannot make it tonight, he did send me along his reason for his nomination. So bear with me. I'm very pleased to nominate Louis Richardson as the UPUA's Executive Director of the Student and Organizational Rights Advisors Program. As you all know, Louis is one hardworking student. As a representative and as a current SORA advisor, Louis has already made his priorities clear. He's here to help our students as best he can. The SORA program, formerly called the Student Conduct Advisors, serves as a uniquely peer-to-peer advising program to help students through Penn State's conduct process. And while SORA is considered a subsidiary of the UPUA's executive branch, any student can serve as an advisor, including members of the judicial and legislative branches. As such, Louis has already contributed a great deal to the revitalization of the program, from rebuilding the SORA program's website to starting conversations on integrating it into the conduct process as a de facto option for all students, to highlighting it in various communities around campus. He has proven he can lead his team and lead it well. What's more, I'm already relying on his experience and passion. Louis is the right person I call when I get messages asking about SORA and has been able to handle things. I rely heavily on Louis's expertise as the head of this program and hope to have him as my own advisor of sorts for all that SORA is up to, so that I can help the program grow as best as it can. As Louis is a representative, I'm grateful to the Judicial Board for granting him permission to serve in both the legislative and executive branches, a process which Chief Justice Shookman can speak more to, should anyone like. It is with great confidence that I submit to you my recommendation for a nomination of Louis Richardson for the post of Executive Director of the UPUA Student and Organizational Rights Advisors Program. With that, I can't answer any questions on behalf of President McKay, but I definitely can try. So I will still pose the question, are there any questions for President McKay in this nomination? All right, seeing none, is there any discussion? Chair Jordan?
Sarah Jordan at large. Yeah, I think that I support Louis in this role. He seems like he's very like really accomplished for it. He seems really into it as well, which is kind of hard for being in a role where you have to deal with things that may not be something you see every day. But Louis, since he has previously been a part of SORA, I believe that he could do a great job in this. Yeah, I support him, just so you guys know.
Representative Lascaz?
Ryan Lascazzo, Line Pride Representative. I full-heartedly support Louis, Representative Richardson, in this endeavor. He was a part of SORA before he was even a representative. He's just a very hardworking person, and I think we all very much support him, and we are all kind of, that's why we don't really need to talk about this. Also, I'm seeing that the Chief Justice wants to speak, so I'll just end now so that she can speak.
Thank you. I just wanted to really quickly add, as President McKay said, he did file an appeal, or sorry, not an appeal, a request to the Judicial Board to allow Lewis to serve, and it was a unanimous vote to allow him to serve. And I did also want to just reiterate, this is not unprecedented. In the past few years, we have had both representatives and members of the Judicial Board be members of SORA, so effectively members of two branches, and that is completely fine as long as it's approved by the Judicial Board. So there are no constitutional issues with this nomination.
All right, with that, is there any other discussion? All right, seeing none, I will now close the floor for debate and discussion. With that, Speaker Zong will send the form in the team, so same process as we've always been doing. I'll always explain it just to make sure everyone knows. Head over to Microsoft Teams, go to the General Assembly channel, and that's where Speaker Zong will send the form. Please cast your ballot as soon as you can, just so that we're being as efficient as we can with time. So please head over to Teams. If you're having any technical issues at all, just message me privately on Zoom and I can get your vote down. I know there are more of you than responses in right now, so please, if you haven't already, head over to Teams and please vote just so that we can be as efficient with our time as we can.
Which category is it under? I can't seem to find it.
It's under General Assembly channel on the overall UPUA Teams, and then if you go to the side, it's General Assembly.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm giving it a minute and then close. All right, and with that, and with Lewis back in the room, congratulations, Lewis. You have been confirmed with a vote of 34-0. Welcome aboard again. Now, Kathy, when you are ready, you'll have 5 minutes to speak and 10 minutes for questions. You may start whenever you'd like.
Hi, everybody. For those of you that know me, or those that don't, my name is Kathy Zhao, and I would like to be UPUA's first year executive director for 2020 to 2021. A little bit about me: I was involved in UPUA last year as a Panhellenic representative, and I have learned so much from being in it. I believe that it has a tremendous amount to offer, which is why I am passionate about leading new members into this organization. Although COVID has changed many things about the way we function, I am confident in my ability to adapt and improvise to provide the best first year experience possible for interested members. Drawing from my sorority experience, I've seen how other organizations have grown their membership despite a global pandemic, and I'm eager to implement similar ideas to bring in new members for the organization. I also recall what it was like joining UPUA for the first time, and I'm sure many of you do as well, which is why I strive to provide a safe space for new members to ask questions, give input, try new ideas, and find a place to belong. I'd love to hear everyone here's ideas as well for how we could do this. As a member in various other clubs throughout campus, I recognize the importance of building a strong base for first-year students. In any functional organization, they are the foundation, and I believe that I can facilitate an inclusive and interactive environment for future members to thrive. Thank you, and if there are any questions, please send them my way.
Are there any questions for Kathy? Chair Jordan?
Sarah Jordan at large. Can you tell us some of the ways that you plan to increase freshman representation in UPUA? Wait, you're muted.
Thank you. That's a great question, Sarah. I have talked a lot with the sisterhood representative of my sorority and how she gets people to interact despite a global pandemic, and she's talked a lot about having small get-togethers and how impactful they are. I believe that if we have a rolling process of applications, we can get a lot of members to apply and see if they can find a fit within UPUA. If they like it, they obviously should stay, and we should have more of these events that keep members interested and want to stay in UPUA.
Are there any other questions for Kathy? All right, seeing none. Kathy, if you could actually leave the Zoom room, I will shoot you a text when you're ready to jump back on. But thank you so much.
Right. Bye.
All right, with that, I also have President McKay's nomination explanation, and I will make it as quick as I can. I'm incredibly excited to nominate Kathy Zhao as UPUA's Executive Director of the First Year Council. Kathy's desire to create a welcoming and growth-centered environment for our first-year members, her previous experience in the ranks of the UPUA, and her genuine care for those around her, to me, make her the perfect candidate for this post. As I'm sure she's talked about, Kathy has solid ideas to get our organization's first-year students engaged, and I'm excited to see the positive environment which she'll help to create for them. As described in the McKay-Pathfield First-Year Engagement Plan, the First-Year Council will be jointly led by the Executive Director of the First Year Council and the Director of First Year Outreach, and will serve as an optional, inclusive, and a family-like mentoring opportunity for any first year students within the UPUA, including those who are already involved. As students join the organization as staffers and other roles, they too will be able to join in on the fun. In this role, Kathy will also work with Speaker Zong, Chief Justice Shipman, and myself, President McKay, to develop the first iteration of the UPUA's new member orientation program, which will serve as an optional educational opportunity for all first-time members of the UPUA to learn more about the organization and dive deeper into their roles as advocates for their fellow students. It is with the utmost confidence that I submit to you my recommendation for and nomination of Kathy Zhao for the post of Executive Director of the UPUA's First Year Council. Again, I'm not President McKay, obviously, so if you have any questions, please feel free to field them over. If there are any that I could answer, feel free to ask them right now. So are there any questions? All right, seeing none, is there any discussion? Representative Bose?
Aaron Bose, just really quickly, I got to know Kathy, or not Representative Zhao anymore, Kathy, I guess, last year, and she's super sweet, so energetic, always really welcoming to everybody. So I have full faith that she's going to do awesome in this job, and that she'll make sure that we not only get a bunch of freshmen into the organization, but that they know what's going on and that she keeps them engaged.
All right, Representative Polillo?
Yeah, just really quickly, I think this is a great fit for her. When I first got the panel position, she reached out to me, and within like the week of getting it, we had 2 or 3 meetings where she kind of explained everything that would be happening. And even when we had our first UPUA meetings, I'd be texting her a lot, or she'd be reaching out to me asking how it was going. And then if I had any questions or didn't understand something that was going on, she was always like the first to help me, super sweet about it. So I think this is a really great fit for her.
Is there any other discussion? All right, congratulations, Kathy. You have been confirmed with a vote of 33-0. Congratulations and welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right, and with that, the next item on the agenda is confirmation of Executive Director of the First Year Council. Swearing in of the Executive Directors. Sorry, guys. With that, I will also be swearing in since President McKay isn't here. So Lewis and Kathy, if you could unmute yourselves and raise your right hand and repeat after me. I promise to faithfully uphold.
I promise to faithfully uphold
The Constitution of.
the Constitution of. Now you can go, Kathy.
The University Park Undergraduate Association.
The University
Park Undergraduate Association.
And to defend the rights.
And to defend the rights.
Of each individual student.
Of each
individual student.
While working toward the betterment of student life.
While working towards the betterment of student life.
I shall perform.
I shall perform.
To the best of my ability.
To the best of my
ability.
The responsibilities and duties.
The responsibilities and duties.
That have been entrusted to me by.
That have been entrusted to me by.
The University Park Undergraduate Student Body.
The University Park
Undergraduate Student Body.
Through virtue of the Through virtue of the office which I hold.
Through virtue of the office
which I hold.
That's a tongue twister, but congratulations, guys, and welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right, and with that, we'll move on to line item D, Bill 0415, Purchasing Penn State University Parks Plan, Post-Landfill Action Network membership. Chair Jordan, if you'd like to introduce this.
Hi, everyone. Happy Wednesday. So I am going to read a little bill summary that Ann Lay, Director of Waste Management, sent me to read for this. And then Ann's also here to answer any questions anybody may have. I can answer them too, but kudos to Ann for writing this awesome piece of legislation for this bill. It was really hard, she worked really hard on it, and I'm excited to bring it to the floor tonight. So with that being said, here is what this bill entails. So waste production, specifically that of plastics, has been a great deal of environmental, economic, and social impacts in its production, use, and disposal processes. Penn State contributes to this injustice. According to a Penn State solid waste management audit conducted in March 2019, our waste streams have been most contaminated by miscellaneous plastics, and secondly, student-initiated participation in recycling is subpar. So Penn State's Waste Stream Task Force developed plans that address these problems. Most of them revolve around post-consumption intervention and achieving higher, diversion rates rather than reduction at the source. However, waste management strategies must, as a whole, significantly reduce waste. So with this membership bill, that's $1,000 right here, the Post-Landfill Action Network Plan is an organization that works with college campuses across the country to help students explore ways to improve waste management on a systematic level, with a focus on challenging waste creation and the linear resource economy. These proposed funding for an annual membership will give Penn State students, staff, faculty, and administration access to manuals and resources, leadership training, and workshops. Discounts to zero waste companies, advising services, and a collaborative network of other institutions. The Department of Sustainability will be responsible for disseminating these resources to sustainability themed student organizations, such as the Council of Sustainable Leaders, the SI, Eco-Reps, etc., that wish to further the development of Penn State's zero waste initiatives. And then by the end, so Anne is going to write a report for us to all see how this worked and things like that we can approve on. But that's kind of what it's all entails. So basically all this bill is asking for is the membership to the plan, so they can have access to all of these great resources. With that, I will stand for any questions. I also yield time to Anne if she has anything else to say.
Anne, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Oh yeah, sorry. I didn't know if that was a question. Yeah. Well, I'd just like to add that 6 of the Big Ten schools are already members. I do have like testimonies from both staff and students at University of Pittsburgh if anybody would like to hear. Or if you think it's necessary, just let me know.
I would share
read
one
of
if you
them
want to
out?
learn.
Yeah.
Sure. I'll read the one from the staff member who works on the sustainability team at Pittsburgh. Yep, so she's the sustainability coordinator. She says, the University of Pittsburgh has been a plan member since 2016. In 2016, the student leaders of our campus thrift store, Thriftsburg, came across some of the plan resources online, reached out to them, and after much sharing, free sharing of resources, came to me and asked that the university join plan so that we could, as a community, have access to the members-only resources. We followed a similar process of vetting. I spent much time speaking with Plan and other schools that they had worked with, and we decided based on their depth of expertise in reuse, their expertise with zero waste events, campus thrift stores, and the work they were pioneering in ethical and thoughtful purchasing policies that would be a benefit to us as an institution to purchase a membership. It has turned around to be an extremely beneficial membership. We have sent countless students to zero waste conferences over the years. Our students have presented at that conference on several occasions, providing them valuable professional development and networking experience. We utilized an early version of their Atlas framework. Atlas is a strategic planning of their waste system framework, in the design of our green events programming, and their ethical guide has been shared university-wide with our purchasing department, student affairs, and other who do large-scale purchasing for student-facing programs. And we have been able to make huge strides in reducing the amount of unnecessary waste purchased on campus. Yeah. So I hope that was helpful.
Thank you. With that, we'll stand for questions for both either Anne or Sarah or Representative Jordan. Representative Deshpande.
Yeah, hi, I'm Representative Deshpande at large. My question for you is, why do you think Penn State specifically needs plan?
You mean like in general, or? Well, yeah, I can just so I think Sarah mentioned the waste audit that was conducted last year, and it showed that miscellaneous plastics were the highest contaminants of our waste streams, and also there's subpar recycling participation around campus. And I think in that, our current focuses on sustainable initiatives are kind of geared towards recycling, and recycling incentivizes production consumption, and also because single-use plastics can only get recycled a finite amount of times. So I think this is just moving Penn State towards sort of a different philosophy in the way they look at waste management. I hope that.
All right.
Yeah. Can I respond?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I hear you. I guess so. Can I clarify that it's mainly student facing, and it's not really like about working with administration or like employees. It's mostly about student facing programming.
I think, I mean, most of these resources will be available to students, but I think a lot of those student organizations have faculty advisors. So I know like folks at the SI would definitely use that for a variety of organizations they run, like EcoReps, CCSG, CSL, specifically in, I think it was CSL, they have a zero waste working group, which is advised by someone at the SI. So I think this is more of a collaborative effort for those student groups and just, faculty administrations, maybe not so much administration, but I know faculty advisors and folks at the SI would definitely find this useful.
Are there any other questions for Chair Jordan or Ann? All right, seeing none, we'll now move into discussion. Is there any discussion on Bill 0415? Chair Jordan?
Chair Jordan at large. I also just want to say this again. Really kudos to Ann for working on this piece of legislation. We're really excited tonight. She worked so hard on it. So I really support this. I know it's going to be a great asset to the Sustainability Department as well as Ann and their research. So I encourage you all to vote yes. Thanks, everyone.
Representative Round Sorensen?
I just wanted to express like my total support for this. I think that this is amazing and I'm really excited to vote yes, and I really hope that everybody else does. As we all know, like climate change is like one of the biggest threats facing our entire planet right now. So it's really exciting that Facilities is focusing on taking like a real tangible step towards decreasing Penn State's impact on climate change.
Is there any other discussion? All right, seeing none, I will now close the floor for discussion. With that, because it is a bill, it does have to go through roll call vote. I know you guys want to get out of here, but I promise Secretary Thomas will be quick with it. So again, please unmute yourself when your name is called, mute yourself so there isn't background noise. But Secretary Thomas, when you're ready, you may call the name.
Marcy Kalor.
Yes.
Adeline Mishler.
Yes.
Alex Wu.
Yes.
Amanda Bird.
Yes.
Amy Gary.
Yes.
Anne Marie Round Sorensen.
Yes.
Blake Tolliver.
Yes.
Ryan Schultz.
Yes.
Cameron McColgan.
Yes.
Kara Flegel.
Yes.
Dan Russer. Aaron Bowes.
Yes.
Jacob Klipstein.
Yes.
Jarrell Gibbs.
Yeah.
John Mark Miller.
Yes.
Joshua Reynolds.
Yes.
Kaylee Quinnen. Cara DeLucio.
Yes.
Kelly Snyder.
Yes.
Lakin Meter. Lewis Richardson.
Yes.
Marie Meisner. Manny Alamonte. Matty McIntyre.
Yes.
Megan Dalo.
Yes.
Najee Rodriguez.
Yes.
Noah Robertson.
Yes.
Patricia Barungi,
Yes.
Rainier Foley Di Fiore,
Yes.
Refugio Lara, Ryan Lascalzo,
Yes.
Samantha Brown,
Yes.
Sarah Jordan,
Yes.
Siddhi Deshpande,
Yes.
Stephen Zhang,
Yes.
Sydney Gibbard,
Yes.
Sophia Polillo,
Yes.
Tim Tierney, Tom Dougherty,
Yes.
Xiaorao Xu,
Yes.
Yu Jin Yong,
Yes.
Yuna Choi,
Yes.
Anna Taylor,
Yes.
Kyle Quinn,
Yes.
Secretary Thomas, are you good?
yes.
Was there anyone's name not called? I saw the chat and I got the vote down. All right, with that, Bill 0415, purchasing Penn State University's Parks Plan Post-Land Full Action Network membership passes unanimously. And with that, we'll move on to Resolution 3015 in support of the demands made by Penn State's Department of African American Studies. Representative Klipstein, if you'd like to introduce this.
Hi, everyone. Jacob Klipstein at large. So first, I'm going to explain why it took so long to get here, and then I'll explain what's in the resolution. So over the summer, I was planning on writing a resolution about this, and then life got really bad. I asked Najee for some help, and then we both just got completely swamped by family things, by our living situations over the summer, and we were like, okay, let's readdress this when we get back to school. All right, so we got back to school, and now we have this resolution in front of you. Basically, it is a statement in solidarity with the African American Studies Department, who, if we remember in the last couple of years, was actually kicked off of campus because they did construction in their building and we forced them to move downtown. But this is in support of the demands they've made after all the social unrest this summer. And I'm just going to go down one by one over what those demands are. The first is severing ties with local police forces and disarming campus police. The assurance that members of the Black community at Penn State can live in an environment where they do not fear for their lives. Remember, 2 years ago, a member of our community was shot and killed by police, and we still don't know the name of the officer who shot him. 2, establishment of a new task force on policing in communities of color. 3, center courses in African American studies and other appropriate units for a new GE requirement on anti-Black racism and challenges to it. That's my favorite requirement. I think requiring education at an educational university is great. 4, establishment of a well-funded resource center for underrepresented faculty. 5, increase of support for Black students. And 6, increase of mental health resources for Black students. And because we have a 3-minute time limit, I will yield to Najee in case he has anything to say, and then we will stand for questions.
Hi there, Najee Rodriguez, College of the Liberal Arts. Just to kind of fill in kind of the tangible actions that we'll be taking tonight if this does pass, which hopefully it does. Again, UPUA is trying to mend the relationship that it's had in the past with caucus groups, and this is work that's already been done currently by them. So we just want to amplify their messaging and fill in any gaps of advocacy that we can to ensure that this is a tangible resolution moving forward. So by doing so, in every space that we're in with conversations with administration, we will try to amplify the demands of the department to fill in those gaps and remain cognizant of the work that was done by the caucus groups already. I want to iterate that it also includes calling for student senators to faculty senate to add anti-racism in general education. So kind of a diffusion of responsibility here. And then sending a declaration of support on behalf of the assembly to Eric Barron, Vice Provost Nick Jones, and Vice President of Student Affairs Damon Sims, expressing that support. We should trust in the Department of African American Studies to know what their community needs. They are well-renowned scholars, faculty. They know what is to be done in the solutions to these issues. So we should amplify that messaging and support our Black students at Penn State. And with that, we stand for questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Representative Clipstein or Chair Rodriguez? Representative Richardson?
Hi, Lewis Richardson, SHC. I just kind of wanted to convey a question that I'd actually, I presented this legislation at the Schreier Student Council meeting yesterday night, and there was a question on the first point. Lex, if you could scroll to that, or whoever.
Speaker's on.
Awesome. Yeah, just on the disarmament part, there was a lot of pushback in the Schreier Student Council meeting from members on disarming campus police. Could you just clarify sort of what that means, if that's actually practically speaking, like disarming with weapons, or if it's another sort of like, I just kind of need clarification on that.
Yeah, I can actually step in to kind of provide some more clarification. So in the letter that I emailed you guys out, I believe 10 minutes ago, ultimately it was just to kind of add further context to what was already stated. We attempted to just generalize everything that we saw from that letter. And really, I want to point everyone back to the recommended course of action, the first paragraph. All we're really committing to is to diligently advocate for the tangible demands that can be made and doing our best to kind of advocate for what is really needed. So in the letter, there are deep sentiments obviously expressed by the Department of African American Studies and Black students at Penn State, where there is uncomfort with disarmament of campus police. I just want to emphasize that this is going to be advocated for as it is in their letter. Realistically, we don't know what will come out of it, but we are expressing the concerns that were made from this group of faculty and what we can do better to make sure that we're advocating on behalf of the community that feels discomfort with law enforcement in general having weapons in person on their person.
I can, to give a little more context, in the letter itself, it says we support the demilitarization of all police, including on-campus police. Our on-campus police right now have an armored vehicle. Now, I gotta be honest, I can't think of anything we could do as a collective that would require an armored vehicle here at Penn State. I think when you read the words disarm, it literally means disarm. I can't say that students would feel safe if they see cops walking around campuses locked and loaded. So I'm on board with disarmament.
Representative Reynolds?
I just have a clarification. Representative Richardson covered my first question. My second question is, if you could define more specifically what you mean in section 5, it says, we ask that Penn State increase the resources it devotes to recruiting Black and underrepresented students. Who are we defining in this context as underrepresented students?
Hi, I can answer that if that's okay at first, and then Jacob can kind of expand on that. Essentially what this was meant to cover, and again, it's conveyed through a generalization of the original letter, but this was based on statistics and research that the department itself made. And in order to expand, again, what it says, socioeconomic equity, obviously Black students would receive an increase of scholarships due to Black students being a group that typically graduates with the highest amount of student debt. Moreover, in terms of the underrepresented aspect that you brought up, statistically, it is the groups that fall in the category of Latinx, Black, just Black Indigenous people of color. That is kind of what is covered. In that definition, the Department of African American Studies was very encompassing of all groups, and they demonstrated allyship in this letter, and we're basically bolstering that notion in our resolution here. So that's what's specifically defined, and if you would like to add clarification or motion to do that, you certainly can. Just hope I was able to answer that.
Okay, thank you. And I guess follow up, could you then clarify, is underrepresented the same definition in section 4?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Quinn?
So I just have a quick question. Being is my first month here, I don't really know too much about it. It's on point number 1, severing ties with the local police force. To what extent are we, I guess, tied to the local police force, and what do you seek to accomplish by severing said ties?
Jacob, are you comfortable
Representative
with
Brown?
answering?
Yeah, so the letter itself, and I don't want to speak for, like, I don't want to say anything that is not the original intent. Says we request that Penn State, as have other universities, dissolve contracts with outside police forces whose policies and practices reflect the pervasive anti-Black bias evident in policing around the country. Truthfully, we don't have a ton of events with State College Police Department. When we have football games, the people who are there are the state police, right? But what this is really asking for is for us to go into all the contracts we have with different police forces, studying them and making sure that that basically they don't have anti-Black biases in their policing. And I think in the case of the State College Police, that's something that is a little more apparent than with groups like the state police that cover our sporting events. But those are things that, you know, the university has to look at in order to make our students and our faculty feel safe here at Penn State.
Yeah, no, I totally understand what you're saying there. I was just curious as to if you knew kind of specifically what ties, because I know that we have our own campus police force, and I know there is a state college police force, but I just wasn't sure what ties there were between the city force.
Yeah, it's
and
usually
the
when we
actual
contract them
university.
for events that need more security.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Representative Clipstein or Chair Rodriguez? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to discussion. Is there any discussion? Representative Ron Sorensen?
I would just like to, I have an amendment. I would like to be added as a co-sponsor to this resolution.
Is there a second?
Second, and if Najee accepts it as friendly, I accept it as friendly.
Yes, sir, and yes, ma'am.
Perfect, okay. Chair Rodriguez?
I would like to motion to add Appendix A, letter in support, supportive demands made by Penn State's Department of African American Studies into the resolution.
I
emailed that out.
I just need, okay, perfect. And since you're a co-sponsor, it's going to be added. Representative Brown.
Sorry, you cut out. Was that to me? Okay, thank
Yes.
you. So I have a few questions, contentions. So with number 5, firstly, dealing with student aid, I can appreciate the existence of disparity in student debt, but my question is, why is this not approached through the lens of tailoring more scholarships and financial aid to the lower income students that need the aid, rather than focusing instead on the race of the student? Because it so happens I myself am a student who is white and definitely in the lower income bracket. I'm a dependent on a single mother who works at Wegmans. And so I'm just wondering, how is that considered, and why is it advocating specifically for race-based scholarships instead of income-based scholarships and need-based scholarships, which would ostensibly ameliorate those discrepancies?
Representative Schultz. Representative Schultz.
Sorry, I thought you said someone else. Yeah, so I definitely appreciate this resolution. I definitely trust the faculty of the Department of African American Studies to say what this community needs and what Penn State needs to do to address that community's needs. My only concern is with item 1 of that letter. It seems to very clearly say that we need to disarm campus police. And personally, I think that sort of goes beyond the scope of just helping the African American community. I think that puts all of our communities at risk. Like, what if there was a shooting or something on campus? Who would respond? We're criticizing state college police. Are we going to ask state college police to respond to a shooting? Personally, I wouldn't feel safe if there was a violent act on campus and the police weren't ready to respond appropriately. So for that reason, I would have to ask for some sort of amendment to remove our support for that section, or else I feel I might need to vote against this resolution. Thank you.
Representative Tolliver.
Blake Tolliver, Black Caucus. I love this resolution. The African American Studies definitely made sure they made sure their statement was heard, and I think that something like this specifically is very important to take consideration, especially President Barron when he's looking at tangible action steps to help change the atmosphere at Penn State and make it more friendly for people of color. And I think that these tangible action steps are ways in which, instead of making task forces or saying we'll initiate this and using language that kind of avoids really facing the situation head on, I think tangible action steps like these, like while some of them people may have some issues with, specifically number one, I can definitely understand. However, there are other great things in here that definitely push towards a better Penn State. And I think voting in favor of this bill is pushing yourself and voting towards a better Penn State. Thank you.
Chair Rodriguez.
Najee Rodriguez, College of the Liberal Arts. I would just like to address a few concerns and hopefully assuage those concerns. In terms of section number 5, by all means, we are aware of the financial struggles that students in general may face. However, the financial aid that is addressed in this to alleviate centuries of oppression and systematic racism against people of color, Black, Indigenous, people of color, from accessing higher education is what this aims to solve. It's not meant to be addressing the overall issue of affordability. It's meant to address centuries of racial oppression and inequity. That's what we hope to do by this. It's not meant to be specific. It's specifically about racial equity. In terms of section number 1, severing ties with local police forces and disarmament of campus police, I believe it is our responsibility as an undergraduate student government to convey the desires and needs of the undergraduate students that we represent. In this case, it is the Black community and their feelings of uncomfort with having law enforcement having weapons. I think we need to be very cognizant of that. And we need to do everything that we can to express that. Specifically acknowledging that the Department of African American Studies is a conveyor of these wishes and needs. Faculty who have studied, who have researched, who are the foremost intellectuals in their field to know how to address these concerns, and they provided solutions that they would like to see advocated for their community and the students that they teach. Again, I don't think it should be removed because in the recommended course of action, we specifically state that we will diligently advocate for tangible demands that can be made. We will advocate for these demands. If the administration refuses, we can't do anything about it. We are an advocacy organization. We are making a statement by issuing this conveyance of needs. They stated that they want to sever ties with local police forces and disarm campus police. We will do what we can to advocate for that demand. That is what the letter states. That's what we should advocate for our Black students at Penn State. Thank you.
Representative Ron Sorensen, again, I'm going to reiterate the 3-minute time limit, and I'll be privately messaging you if you are reaching the limit.
Of course. Thank you so much, Representative Rodriguez. I really personally, I really appreciate that. I feel like that was a really tactful way to address some of the comments that were made. I would also like to address some of the concerns. I think that we should not let our perhaps personal opinions about police come into this discussion. We are talking about supporting a letter that was written by a department of academics who know very well what they're talking about. This wasn't drafted in some random college dorm. I mean, even if it was, the points made are excellent. We're talking about some very this is all really important, and I don't want to be redundant. But I would also like to address that we should really be careful about equating the struggles of white people to Black people, because while obviously white people can struggle, we still have a different kind of privilege than Black people. We have white privilege, and that's real. And we should really not be pretending like we don't in discussions. I would also like to say that if someone has an issue with a shooting happening on campus, perhaps they should advocate for gun control instead of weaponizing and arming the police and bringing more guns into the equation. As a lot of academics have pointed out, and political organizers have pointed out over this past summer, the police don't stop do not stop shootings at schools. They happen for reasons outside of their control. So I feel like we really should not let that factor into our decision making when voting on this legislation. Thank you.
Representative Lascaux.
Ryan Lascauzo, Lion Pride representative. I am in full support of this resolution, and I kind of wanted to respond to some of the comments made about point number 5. Just for some historical context, I think might be important. In 1983, a judge ruled that the Office of Civil Rights needed to enforce like the Civil Rights Act of anti-discrimination law for universities around the country, and Penn State was one of those universities. And it was and part of the mandate was that Penn State had to increase its Black student population to 5% by 1988, and in order to be considered like desegregated, for not discriminating against people for for enrollment and such. And Penn State University, our University Park campus never reached, I don't believe from the data that I can see, it never actually reached that number. We've always kind of been around 4%. Black people have always been around like 4% of the student population, and have kind of faced like whether or not there's actual racists or anything in the people deciding who gets enrolled or who gets the aid, the effects of racism are still very prevalent. And I think that's why it's important that we have that student aid thing in there, because it is helping us to relieve that historical injustice Penn State had incurred and has not entirely solved yet. And it will help us reach that goal of keeping and retaining, retaining as well as helping to enroll African American and Black students.
Representative.
Wait, was that me? I couldn't hear it cut off.
Representative Miller, sorry if the connection's bad.
Representative Robertson and I had a motion to end discussion in the chat.
Ah, that's my bad. I'm sorry, guys. With that, I'm going to launch a poll simply because there is a queue of people. Give me a sec as I'm doing this in real time. Okay. Alrighty. Again, give me a second, because I'm just gonna. Alrighty, it should be ready. Let me know if you guys can see it or not.
Does no mean continue discussion?
Yeah, I'll clarify, I think. So yes means you do want to end discussion. No means you do not. You want to continue discussion. And abstain means if you just weren't present or do not know enough information right now. All right, I'm going to end the poll. Majority wins. 25 people have said they would like to end discussion, and with that, discussion and debate will be closed. There's a motion to vote by roll call. Is there a second? I see a second. Is there any discussion? I'm going to clear everyone's hands for a second. Is there any discussion on the motion to vote by roll call? Representative Reynolds?
Yes, I think that some concerns were raised tonight, and that it would be most unfortunate given the precedent that some members of the UPUA attack other members personally by name on Twitter for the way they vote on certain bits of legislation. I do not think it would be appropriate for somebody to attack out of context a student who has a dissenting vote on the legislation based on a particular reason not reflective of their overall views of the legislation.
Representative Tierney.
Continuing at large, I think this is going to pass overwhelmingly, and I think a motion to by roll call will just be redundant and a waste of time.
Chair Rodriguez.
Najee Rodriguez, College of the Liberal Arts. I think that this is a very important resolution. Those in attendance, everyone here should have the right, and students should have the right to know what their representatives voted for. I don't think it should be anonymous. I think this should be something very blatant. It's an issue of racial equity. UPUA has had problems with this in the past, and I think it's very important that we're held accountable for our votes today, and that representatives are also held accountable for how they may vote, and they should own that responsibility of how they vote.
I see a point of information with Representative Gabriel.
For our poll, like when we do voting through Microsoft Teams, is that made public as well because that records our name, or is only vote by roll call public record?
We do vote by roll call, but Speaker Zong, since he is the one that I think I'm going to refer to Speaker Zong here. Is there a way that you can make it so that people have to log into their Teams and it's or their Outlook, and like that way you can record their votes that way? I just want to make sure.
So I don't know, are you asking if we can make this like a poll and then just put up the have like a public roll call? Like, so the way we did it last assembly was that by switching to modern rules of order, we would, if we were in assembly, I'm sure you remember that we would just vote by agreement, yay, nay, and then you wouldn't record the names. So even though names have been recorded on Microsoft Forms, we don't put it out besides saying, you know, the vote was passed by so-and-so, or it was passed unanimously, without putting each individual's name up there, unless you specifically request a roll call. If you're asking if we can like put out a poll instead of going down the roll call and still make it public and just say vote by roll call, we can do that too, if that was like your question.
Give me a second. I see a lot of people on the queue, but I think what I'm just going to do is do a poll again. We're just going to vote on it. Motion to vote by roll call. I think saying yes means yes, saying no means no. Let's see. Give me a sec again as I'm doing this in real time. I will let Speaker Zong speak on the roll call discussion. I didn't realize that he chatted me a while ago, and I didn't see that. But Speaker Zong, I will allow that, and then I will close the floor.
Yeah, from my point of view, and again, like I don't want to sway the roll call or any vote anywhere. I personally am not comfortable with doing a roll call because there are people who had more discussion and dissenting points, and I think that by closing discussion, if anyone looks at the roll call votes, it's just going to be a yes or no, and you don't know the discussion and the points as to why those representatives wanted to discuss more on yes or no. I think that's a really big issue, and that someone can be attributed to their vote if they voted no, and they wanted to explain why they voted no. They didn't get the opportunity to during discussion because we closed it. So I think it could be misleading in the sense that saying, oh, like if you look at someone's vote, they voted no on this resolution, you wouldn't necessarily know if they voted down the entire thing by looking at our meeting minutes because we closed discussion early. I don't necessarily think I wouldn't be comfortable in subjecting representatives to that, and the idea that they didn't get to, you know, have full discussion, especially if they had dissenting opinions. I don't think it's fair to them. My personal idea is voting yes on this, but and that's just my personal opinion. But I'm reading chat.
I'm going.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
just
also
my.
reading the chat. Thank you, Representative Bose. Please keep chatter and comments out of the chat, please. But with that, I'm going to lean on my experience here in UPUA, and that the student body does have a right to know how you voted. What I will encourage you guys to do, so what I'm going to actually do is I'm lowering everyone's hand right now. I'm sorry. All right, so what I'm going to do is, as chair, there is a lot of discussion here. What I will first do is release the poll and see how every other representative is feeling, because a lot of them didn't speak. But then if it's still like a toss-up, I will make a decision from there. But I want this to be a democracy. I don't want to be a dictator, so that's why I figured a poll would be the best option here. Yeah. Secretary Thomas or Speaker Zong, if you could clarify to me how many reps are here, just so that I get the count correct.
Earlier in the meeting, there was 33. So unless new people jumped on, there's 38 votes. I can double check again, but it was 33 when we did the bill.
So point of information, how many would be 1/5?
According to my math, if I am doing it correctly, it would be 7 reps. And with that, I'm going to end the poll. There is a vote. Overwhelmingly, yes. With that, I will allow the motion to roll call. Motion by roll call. I will also remind you all you can appeal this decision. Just making sure that you guys know your right/opportunities as reps and what you can do. But with that, I will allow the motion to roll call. Secretary Thomas, when you are ready. And if there's any other, I'll also keep an eye on the chat, but Secretary Thomas, when you're ready.
RC Kalor,
Yes.
Adeline Mishler,
Yes.
Alex Wu,
Yes.
Amanda Bird,
Yes.
Amy Gary,
Yes.
Anne Marie Round Sorensen,
Yes.
Blake Tolliver,
Yes.
Ryan Schultz,
No.
Cameron McColgan,
Yes.
Kara Flegel,
Yes.
Dan Risser, Aaron Bowes,
Yes.
Jacob Klipstein,
Yes.
Jarrell Gibbs, John Mark Miller,
No.
Joshua Reynolds,
No.
Kaylee Quinnen, Cara DeLucio,
Yes.
Kelly Snyder,
Yes.
Lakin Meter,
Yes.
Lewis Richardson,
Yes.
Marie Meisner, Manny Alamonte, Matty McIntyre,
Yes.
Megan Dalo,
Yes.
Najee Rodriguez,
Yes.
Noah Robertson,
Yes.
Patricia Barungi,
Yes.
Rainier Foley Di Fiore,
Yes.
Refugio Lara,
Yes.
Ryan Lascalzo,
Yes.
Samantha Brown,
Yes.
Sarah Jordan,
Yes.
Siddhi Deshpande,
Yes.
Stephen Zhang,
Yes.
Sydney Gibbard,
Yes.
Sophia Polillo,
Yes.
Tim Tierney,
Abstain.
Tom Dougherty,
Yes.
Shirao Shu,
Yes.
Yujin Young, Yuna Choi,
Yes.
Anna Taylor,
Yes.
Kyle Quinn.
Yes.
Is there anyone's name I missed?
And with that, Resolution 3015 in support of the demands made by Penn State's Department of African American Studies passes with a vote of, give me a sec, 34-3-1. And with that, we will move down the agenda. I, as chair, am please asking that we stay until the end. I know that there's something going on at 9 and many of us want to watch, but I do want to make the time for people to have comments of the good of the order or any important announcements. So with that, report by the Chief Justice of the Judicial Board, Chief Justice Shook.
Okay, hi everyone, I'll keep this very brief. This Friday from 3 to 4 p.m. will be the first Judicial Board Community Group Seat Work session of the semester. As you all know, we are required to hold at least 4 of these sessions. So the first will be this Friday, again from 3 to 4. The link for that Zoom meeting is posted on Twitter. And I would highly encourage all of you to share that link, please, through Twitter or any other form of social media, and really spread the word and let any organization on campus know that they can come and ask questions and kind of figure out the process of applying for a community group seat if they wish to do so. Speaking of community group seats, the Judicial Board is actively working on reviewing the 5 applications so far that have reapplied for their seats. Again, these organizations are Black Caucus, Latino Caucus, APITA Caucus, the Multicultural Great Council, and the National Panhellenic Council. We are still waiting on reapplications from the Panhellenic Council and the Interfraternity Council. To be clear, I have reached out to all of these organizations and been in contact with their leadership, so they are aware that they do need to reapply. And that's all I have for you today, and I'll stand for any questions.
Are there any questions for Chief Justice Shookman? Seeing none, we'll move on to executive reports. Are there any executive directors with a report? If you do, please raise your hand in the participants tab. Seeing none, we'll move on to report by the Speaker of the Assembly. Speaker Zong.
Yeah, a lot of changes this week on my schedule. So if you guys want to read my report, I'll also send out email maybe tomorrow about some of the changes, as well as having one-on-ones again. Nothing else. Have fun watching old people yell at each other.
Are there any questions for Speaker Zong? Seeing none, we'll move on to Committee on Academic Affairs with Chair Barungi. Chair Barungi.
Hi, sorry guys. Yeah, my report is going to be in Stephen's email. Not much of that. The committee is going to be canceled this upcoming weekend, so please, all my reps just
check the teams and complete your tasks for these next weeks. If anybody has any questions, feel free to text me or Vice Chair Gibbard, and I will see you guys in 2 weeks. Enjoy your AAC vacation. Bye.
Are there any questions for Chair Barungi? Seeing none, we'll move on to Committee on Facilities with Chair Jordan.
Yeah, really quick, guys. Hi. So let me know if you have any feedback about any campus facilities reopening. The IM building has reopened for a few weeks now, and recently the bus loops, the blue loop and the red link, have reopened under new safety precautions. If you've rode the bus, and you have any feedback on it, let me know, and I can get that back to Rob. They're looking for feedback if needed. And one more thing, congratulations to our new committee coordinator, Brian Kohler. Yeah, facilities will be meeting Sunday at 12. See you all on Zoom. Thanks.
Are there any questions for Chair Jordan? Seeing none, we'll move on to Committee on Governmental Affairs with Chair Doherty.
Hey guys, keeping it quick so we can watch two old people debate. Early voting is already happening in the hub. Representative Clipstein, Representative Scalzo, Executive Director Harnett, and Sarah Gladeau from College Dems joined us, and we voted today as some of the first people who voted, and it was amazing. So if you are considering early voting, it is a great process. It's very easy, so please do. Another thing too, we still have a lot of spaces opened up for tabling for the resource table outside the hub over these next towards the end of this week and for the next week. So please, if you have any time, please sign up. It's very nice just to be out there and be able to talk with students, see how many are registered, so you can kind of get a feel for where this election is going to be. Yeah, I'll take any questions for that.
Are there any questions for Chair Doherty? Seeing none, we'll move on to Committee on Justice and Equity with Chair Rodriguez.
Hi, everyone, and happy Wednesday to you all. I'm not going to take too much of your time. I know it's a busy evening. First of all, thank you for passing that resolution tonight. I know it means a lot to the Black community, and I'm glad that we're able to represent the interest of all of our students. Secondly, of course, there will be a meeting on Friday. Hope to see you guys there. We will be brainstorming ideas for student disability resources and how to properly advocate for them. So I hope to see you guys to expand on that. And everything else will be located in my report. Hope you have a great night and enjoy the rest of your week.
Are there any questions for Chair Rodriguez? Seeing none, we'll move on to Committee of Student Life with Chair Michelle.
Hi everyone, I've had a lot of meetings this week with career services, university health services, and attending some seminars with the Chronicle of Higher Ed regarding mental health. So check out my report. Also from last week, there are some outstanding tasks outlined in the teams. If you didn't participate in those tasks from last week because we didn't have committee, please go ahead and do that before committee this week. That would be greatly appreciative to participate in the committee. And then tomorrow we'll be meeting at 6 p.m. via Zoom. We have some resolutions coming, or one resolution for sure coming. So please don't miss, be there to partake and collaborate and check out my report and enjoy the rest of your evening. Take care of yourself.
Are there any questions for Chair Mishler? Seeing none, we'll move on with comments for the good of the order. I'm going to preface, please do not make personal attacks. Do not attack anyone here. I just need to reiterate that. Remember the conversation that was had at Committee of the Whole, please. Representative Bose.
Women's Empowerment Roundtable, Monday, 6 p.m. I'll be sending graphics. Please share them and please come.
Representative Lascano.
Okay, just a little quick thing. Happy LGBT History Month. There's multiple things throughout the month sponsored by the university, by organizations, by the center. There's National Coming Out Day. There's going to be speakers, etc. I'm just going to leave it there because don't want to get too far into it and waste all your time. Also, number two, I just want to talk about the roll call vote a little bit. And one of the reasons I supported it was because of our voting records haven't really been public this year. And I think that whoever's in charge of that should really get going on making our voting records public, because I can't figure out where any of that stuff is and if the public has any access to it. So I think I just did the roll call vote because it was an important piece of legislation that should have voting records public, like most legislation does. But because of how chaotic this semester has been, we haven't really been making these things public, and it should be public.
Representative Round-Soren.
I'll keep this super brief because of the event that that Chair Pathical mentioned before. Like, I would like to go watch it, so I'm going to be quick. I would like to address some backwards comments that were made during discussion. As representatives, I really urge everybody to be mindful of the language that they use. We really need to not, I don't want to say that people were being racist because not necessarily they were being racist, but some of the comments were really off base and inappropriate for the discussion. So I think that we need to pay more attention and be more mindful. Also on roll call, I would like to echo Representative Lascaso's concerns. If you don't want your voting record to be public, then I feel like that's a fundamental issue with being a representative. Like, we are here to advocate for students. We shouldn't be trying to hide our votes from them. We shouldn't be trying to not be transparent with students. Transparency was a huge thing that we all talked about during this election. It was a huge topic of discussion last assembly in a different respect. So we should really be pushing to be as transparent as possible even when things get difficult. I know that was a difficult discussion today, but we shouldn't shy away from being accountable. Thank you.
Representative.
You cut out again. Who was that?
Representative Reynolds, sorry.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to reiterate, I appreciate the reason for roll call, and I have absolutely no problem stating my position on legislation, obviously. My issue is that if we're not going to allow representatives to hold a full discussion and to articulate the reasons for why they feel the way they do, that's to put their voting record on display and then potentially attack them personally for it without the context of why they voted the way they did is extremely unfair, and it's not good to fostering an accurate representation of the student body, because we do have an extremely diverse student body, and I honestly don't believe that the majority of legislation should pass unanimously if it's of any real grit or substance, because there are so many different student groups on campus, and if we're making sure that all of their voices are heard, it's likely that at different times there are going to be different opinions on the same issue. And so if the goal is to force unanimity in everything we pass, then I don't think we're really doing our job to represent the entire student body. I supported much of this legislation. There were just a few reservations I had about it, and I don't like that it's potentially going to be weaponized against me out of context. So thank you.
Representative.
Yeah, just going forward, I definitely appreciate some clarification on like what votes are public and what aren't. Obviously, I have no qualms about sharing my opinion. I just sort of feel like when there's like that jump, everyone jumps in the chat to say, let's vote by roll call. It's like, to me, it feels like you're saying like, hey, we're paying attention to who's voting for what, and we're taking names. And it just like, obviously our vote should be public, but just something about that just felt wrong to me. And I can't really quite place a finger on it, but I was just sort of disappointed that we cut discussion short because I had some more questions and I wanted to be able to support this legislation as a whole. But yeah, that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Representative Richard.
Yeah, real quick. I kind of wanted to touch on the roll call vote just because I feel like it's the reason that we're having this discussion after the fact, I think is because it made a lot of people uncomfortable. I'm not here to say that like our voting record shouldn't be public, because it absolutely should be. Every single vote that we make ought to be known by the students that we represent and that we serve. Despite that, it felt to me a bit like the very push for roll call voting was virtue signaling in some sort of way. It really felt like that was, like Tim said, another reason to subtweet somebody. And, like almost like Brian said just now, I can't quite place my finger on why that makes me feel so uncomfortable, because it's not about the record. I think the record ought to be public, but one way or another, I think that, there's a reason that we vote on things the way that we do, and we ought not to, modify those rules that we often act under, just because a piece of legislation, we kind of want to know what people say on one legislation and signal out other members of the assembly.
Are there any other comments for the good of the order? All right, seeing no other comments and seeing that Secretary Thomas has already taken closing roll call, I adjourn this meeting at 9:07 p.m. Have a great night, everybody, and I hope you're tuning into the VP debate.
Night.
Is there anyone from media here? Onward State? No, I don't see anyone. All right, good night, everybody.